Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar, Boosting Productivity Through Successful Engaging SharePoint Portals. My name is Yari Negri and I'm from Intlock. To start us out, we'll start with the agenda for today's webinar. We'll start with a very short introduction to Intlock and our guest today. We'll then dive right into the good stuff and talk about how we can actually boost SharePoint with the help of engagement and other items. We'll then jump into a short demonstration how we can really engage with users in order to get the results that we'll talk about during the demonstration. And then we'll conclude our hour with some time for questions. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the GoToWebinar question box. And again, towards the end of our call today, towards the end of the webinar, we'll make sure to have enough time to answer your questions. A little bit about webinar housekeeping. First of all, this webinar will be recorded, and we'll send a link to that recording to everyone who has joined or signed up to the webinar. Next, we'll be monitoring Twitter both during the webinar, and of course, after that, you can contact us using @Cardiolog, @Joel Olson, or using the hashtag SPmetrics. And as I mentioned, if there are any questions, feel free to send them in the GoToWebinar panel. Starting out with a little introductions, a little bit of background for those of you who are not familiar about Intlock. We've been around for 8 years now, since 2005, located here in Boston, Massachusetts. Over the past 8 years, Intlock has been focused on one area, and that's web analytics and engagement tools designed specifically for SharePoint. Our key at Intlock is to help our customers build stronger portals, and we do that by understanding how the portal is being used with the goal of being able to enhance the portal and make it better based on that usage. That's a little bit of background for those of you who are not familiar with Intlock. And then our guest today is Joel Olson. Joel, who is the first SharePoint admin. He was rated #1 SharePoint influencer by Forbes columnist, voted most popular SharePoint blogger, and a lot more that I'm sure you all know Joel. Hi, Joel.
Hey, great to be here.
Thank you. Great to have you. And with that introduction, I'll hand it over to you.
Hey, thanks a lot. So what I really wanted to cover here was to really give you some creative ideas. Really the intention here is it's about engagement, it's about adoption, it's about helping engage your users, and I think my real purpose here was to help you understand how you can go from where you're at now, no matter where you are in the maturity model, but to gain more engagement and to get your users more involved in what you're doing with SharePoint. So this agenda today, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with kind of that purpose and mission and why that's so important. Then I'm going to give you a bunch of examples in talking about the destination, being that I'm talking about your portal. Then we're going to go into some strategies and ultimately talk a little bit about the team and why that's so important, and wrapping that up with success. But also want to let you know that we're going to save a lot of time for Q&A, and we're also going to spend some time. I'm going to hand this back so you can see a lot of what Intlock's put together. So that's going to be cool. Next. So the mission and goals here, I think something that often happens in enterprises is they think it's a good idea to have a portal. They're vested in the intranet, but often it's a skeleton crew. If it's one person, there's always a lack of resources. There's always a lack of budget. No matter who you are, we find that the most successful ones are those that actually do have a specific budget, do have a specific mission and purpose, and that the business really believes in it. And a lot of that success is if you can actually paint the picture of what success looks like and be able to help the enterprise understand it's not just upgrade, it's not just giving them new features, but it is how it actually impacts the business and what it means to have a successful intranet or a successful portal for your customers. And it really is key for helping understand and paint that picture for what success looks like. So intranets themselves really have evolved. Back in the day, it was all about having this intranet manager, you know, your webmaster they would manage the intranet. What's changed and has evolved is it went from being one person, even a team managing the intranet, to being that out in the business you have these champions who are generating news and are populating their own department pages and creating HR portals and HR interfaces, and finance has their place where they're doing their dashboards and so on. Well, it's even evolved beyond that now, where it's really about what the employees can contribute. There's a lot more feedback. There's a lot more social integration. There's pages for the employees themselves where they're generating profiles and expertise and a lot around the document management aspects itself. It is more and more engaging. Collaboration has really collided with portals themselves, and social and mobile really have really taken things to that next level. And so it's really gone from being something that one or very few are responsible for, where now it's more of how can we build these very engaging interfaces. Let's move on. I actually spent some time recently with AIM, and they did a survey both last year and this year, and while I was with Salient 6, we put together this infographic that talked to what's going on in the SharePoint world, and what we found was there's a lot of people who are really struggling or stalled. In fact, more than 50% of people are in that stalled, struggling, or failing space. 6% considered themselves successful, where 34% said we're just about there. And I think that part of why I'm speaking to this is it's important people kind of do that reality check of where are you at in your deployment, and also realize you're not alone. And what are those things that prevent success? It is lack of expertise. It is lack of vision. We're talking about adoption problems. We're talking about governance, which is always a plague for SharePoint. You know, the wild, wild west of SharePoint is a harsh reality for so many. And as well, there are many who have really high ambitions. In fact, it's somewhere around 31% who had these high ambitions are really disappointed by their execution and results. And the message I want you guys to take away here is not that, oh, there's a bunch of people who are struggling. It's more, I want you to understand that it's okay to get help. It's great to be able to work with the community, great to work with other people who can help you. It's also very important to have a vision and strategy and to focus on adoption and to have that governance plan. So basically, those are key areas to focus on. But also, don't be afraid to get help. Don't be afraid to get help from consultants, but also reaching out to the community. And speaking to that, high ambitions, a lot of people, they deploy SharePoint thinking it's going to solve all their business problems. And as a platform, there are so many capabilities in the box, but it ultimately ends up Tinker Toys. It ends up being this glorified file share, and a lot of that is due to lack of planning and the lack of ability to execute. They don't have the team, they don't have the skills. And so this doesn't have to be a reality. It is the harsh reality for a lot of folks, but it's because they don't have the ability to execute. So what ultimately is happening is, this is a great quote from Gartner, they say, The social collaboration initiatives fail because they follow this worst practice of provide and pray. And this is definitely speaking to social collaboration and these enterprise social networks, where there's social technologies being deployed and pushed out there without the vision, without a plan. You have to work with the business, and that's really the key thing I want you to take away here is people say, build it and they will come, and that isn't how it works with adoption. It's the next tool, and users kind of see it in that flippant way of, great, another one, rather than seeing it as something that's really enabling. So I actually found that on SPYAM, which is the Yammer community, it's the SharePoint community on Yammer, yammer.com/SPYAM. We've got now 4,300 members of that community, and there was recently a really good thread where we talked about what are some ways of creating engaging portals. What are some really good ideas? So this was a real brainstorm, and I'm not going to talk through every single one of these examples. I've got some examples coming up, but I wanted to give you that full list of the brainstorm to be able to work from, because you don't have to do all of these things. It's a matter of having a lot of ideas to choose from to build in those things that really kind of kick off with users. So I want to kind of speak to a couple of these. One of them is kind of this ideas portal, where people can be very open and share ideas, and the idea as well is being able to boost up the good ideas and then execute on those things that people like the most. Your portal definitely should incorporate brand and culture. It also needs to be very easy. SharePoint, by the way, is not it's not just about, even out of the box, it actually can be quite difficult. So it is important to make it simple. The idea is to incorporate company brand and listen to your users. So let's move on. Content. It's hilarious, but some of the most important areas of the intranet. In the last place I was working, it was the cafeteria menu. At Microsoft, it was the campus maps. If you can actually capture those things that are most popular, those things that are top rated, and push those things up into the portal itself, what I found is even what's great in SharePoint 2013 is you've got the content search web parts where you can actually pull in popularity by specific topics. So for example, you can say in your taxonomy, you may have, in your managed navigation, you may have certain topics like by department. So you can actually say these are the most popular documents for these particular departments. And ultimately being able to say these are the most popular applications, these are the most popular pages, but really bubbling up those things that are most important. Another thing that in terms of popularity, a lot of enterprises, they have discounts. And I found that those discount pages, whether it's shopping things or, cheap tickets at Disneyland or at the amusement park, whatever, those things, employees love that stuff. Classifieds is a great way to get people integrated in a kind of a non-work kind of way. A lot of companies would say, no, we don't do classifieds, but creating that marketplace, creating a place where people can engage with each other, there are a lot of things you can build. Now, talking about things that are a little bit more business focused, a lot of work goes into the public websites, like press releases. Do you really have to have your employees go out to the public websites to get that stuff? No, it wouldn't be that hard to use the RSS feed to pull in those press releases or the news that's going out publicly, being able to pull that stuff into the intranet as well. People love being able to hear from the CEO. They love being able to hear from various executives, whether it's on his blog or in a video. News featuring articles with kind of rich images, very, very common these days, but also something that doesn't really come out of the box. You've got to consider how you're going to present this stuff up, but also leverage targeting. So based on whether they're a department or with their interests, and tagging content so they can easily navigate across that content. I love the idea of subscriptions in news, allowing people to really opt in to be able to get stuff, and ultimately, if they can even get that news in their email, which will then pull them in to read the rest of the article online in the intranet. And archives can become really important. So when a new employee comes in, they can see where things have been. A lot of people do newsletters and email, and it's a missed opportunity having that information in a nice online archive as part of the intranet. Pulling in your community, your social feeds, interest-based things. We'll see some examples of this in just a minute. Some people use comic books, comics, Dilbert, that kind of thing. Employee of the month, featuring people. Additional ideas like People Finder. I found that was one of the most popular reasons people to go to the intranet is to look for people. You'll see a couple examples of predictive search around people. With HTML5 and with jQuery, it's actually not that difficult to make it even more predictive than even what you get out of the box with SharePoint. But really, there's a lot of company content that's buried in SharePoint, whether it's dashboards, tools and applications, making those very easy to navigate, allowing people to pick their favorites, and as well, whether it's timekeeping or payrolls or reimbursement, all those forms, making them very easy to consume, and making it so that it's easy. A lot of people just make these crazy, massive mega menus, but it's important to make it so it's easy to navigate. It's not just about one page. It's okay to organize the information, but you may need to get you definitely should be getting feedback from your users. So here's a few visual examples for you. Imagine here, this is an example of a catalog, but in this catalog you can just start typing any product name. This is an IT catalog. You start typing a name and you can see some examples. Rather than having to click enter, you've got some results that they can quickly go to and navigate even that much faster. Okay. Here's some examples of working with the navigation itself. If you've noticed, in Office 365, you've got your contacts, you've got your calendar, and your mail. Well, what we did for our on-premises environment is we pulled that stuff in right into the global navigation bar right up on top, so you could quickly do a search from no matter where you were, or pull in your calendar. And the idea was to evolve this so you'd actually get the notifications of meetings and being able to hit your contacts and flip over to the to Outlook or Outlook Web Access that quickly. On the next example, you see that right from there you can quickly navigate back to the intranet by simply clicking on the home. But right under home, we actually had some examples of popular intranet destinations. So no matter where you were, there was that kind of global navigation back. And in addition, the site classification was really about building trust with the employees, a nice feature for being able to build kind of trust. The example on the bottom, you can kind of see chats and notifications and even kind of global notifications being built right into the interface. And people love that kind of stuff. They love knowing, hey, there's some new news, or the things you've subscribed to, there's new content. Navigation, right? We did a lot of work to try and understand what are the topics that the people are looking for, what are those most popular content on the intranet, what are people using, and then making it one click away. Putting it in that top navigation of the intranet, and then making nice familiar icons. So if we ever move navigation around, they've got an icon that they can focus on it's pretty, but it also makes it easier for users. And a lot of that was just gathering feedback and using kind of click and heat maps to help people categorize stuff so that we can find out how users themselves discover and find content. Now, I think one of the most important things that's happened to intranets and that's happened to the web over these last couple of years is not just mobile, but tablets, phones, iPads, and even large screens. So there's a lot of resolution is something that you cannot make assumptions that just build it for 1 or 2 or 3 resolutions. But in terms of building responsive designs so that it actually can work on iPads. What's unfortunate with the SharePoint 2013 release is when they built it, responsive design had not yet taken off. While there is some HTML5 stuff incorporated into SharePoint 2013, responsive design is something that's really taken off since then, and the community has gotten behind this. I've included a link here on the bottom, responsivesharepoint.codeplex.com, which is a great resource. You can download a few templates both for SharePoint 2010 and for 2013 for working with Twitter Bootstrap or the Zurb Foundation. If you haven't done much research on responsive design, it's huge. It's very, very important, and it really changes how usable your intranet can be on an iPad, both vertical, horizontal, and even on a phone. From a design perspective, it's really, really important. I'm telling anybody who's building an intranet, they have to include this as your requirements. So I want to give you some real examples, kind of the more comprehensive examples of intranets. I've studied the Norman Nielsen reports and the top 10 intranets, and I include a couple of examples in here and a couple of quotes from that report. But I want you to see some examples of what success looks like. So this is actually one that was built by the BZ team. And here we can see, in this portal, we can see news on the left, nice pictures. You can see these kind of featured events and blogs. Down at the bottom, we can see trending topics. We can see kind of a leaderboard of active users. We can also see a nice video as well as some integration of our social network as well. Nice clean design, lots of pictures, lots of faces, and people love that. Here's another example. This is a mock-up for from that same company from BZ, bz.net. And you can see in these news, you can actually see that it actually bubbles up the likes and the comments in the articles. And what you can do with that content is you can actually create most popular news, trending topics, trending communities. So actually leveraging the data that's in there. SharePoint out of the box does not do that. But when you start thinking about, if you go to CNN or you go to your news website, what do? You go to what's popular. What are people gravitating to? And what's also important with that is the people who write news are going to learn what people gravitate toward. And you can see kind of here this feature of talks with the CEO. The blogs, the chats, that's definitely rich engagement. Being able to bubble up the conversations that are happening in communities makes it rich. And people love the iconography and the engagement there. This is one from the Norman Nielsen report. But what you can see here on the right, and even though it's a bit fuzzy, but when you start typing, you can actually get people results, document results, how-tos, and various different types of categories. In our last intranet, we broke things up by people results and being able to show the faces. That did take a little bit of development, but being able to show people and faces, and you could even start typing a phone number and it would show people whose numbers who matched. We had our best bets all in data mine, so that any of those things, we had various synonyms for being able to quickly bring back those enterprise results and the most popular items, common destinations, things like that. On the left, we see apps. Rather than just seeing these mega menus, being able to see an icon with a description is also, very, very great. And what's nice here is being able to, you can see that they can actually manage those apps or get more apps. So as you build more and more of these destinations, what an app is simply, it could be a team site. It could be a set of pages. It could be a set of HR documents. It's not apps like on your phone, but these are destinations. These are popular places people go, like My HR or like your timekeeping app or whatever. But being able to feature those in a nice, easy way. Okay. Now SharePoint 2013, right out of the box, does have a bit of gamification, you could call it, right out of the box. It's built into the communities with reputation settings. Now, what you can do with this is you can actually expose your top contributors and bubble that up onto your intranet and expose some of what's happening in these communities. So, for example, you can see communities and discussions and replies. I don't have a ton of examples in here, but you get the idea that if you're going to be building around communities, that's a very engaging interface, and it's built right into SharePoint. Why not expose those communities where people can see where the most recent discussions are, what are the hot topics, and what's happening? And with very little development, you can expose that content that's happening underneath. A lot of SharePoint, what's happened in the past and kind of why adoption is slowed in some SharePoint environments, when you go to the page, it looks the same every single time. But with SharePoint 2013, there are web parts that will expose the news feed. It'll expose what's happening. It exposes what's popular. But the key thing is, those web parts are not on the page by default. You have to add those pages. You have to create add the content into those web parts and drag them onto the page. And a lot of the examples, I have included a number of examples where it requires development, but there's quite a bit you can do right out of the box. So let's talk about the team for a minute. I know that a lot of people say, team, what are you talking about? It's just me. But I think it's important to educate the business of what is possible so that you can get the resources to actually build that team. So let's talk about this crew. Team plus skills is critical. Here's a great quote from Norman Nielsen. It's not possible to piece together a first-rate intranet that informs, motivates employees, increases productivity and sharing, unless you have the staff to design, develop, deploy, write, manage, and govern. It's not fair to ask a tiny team, or that one individual, to take on an endeavor as great as designing and managing an intranet, even if you are simply deploying an out-of-the-box solution. And I'll tell you right now, that out-of-the-box solution isn't going to do it. It's a very key quote, and I believe it. The failures I've seen have been lack of resources. It's huge. It's one of the most important things is lack of skills and lack of resource. And this kind of just continues on that concept. It's a misconception that any out-of-the-box product will be great for an organization. Such products typically require considerable design and development work. Indeed, you might need to hire external resources to help with development. And I would say even beyond development, I work with a couple of different consulting agencies, and what I found is a lot of customers, they are over their head. They really do need help. And whether it's being able to just simply touch base and be able to ask questions, or whether, it's the kind of, hey, help me be big brother, just let me ask you some questions and give me some ideas. But also there's cheap development that's out there. With overseas now, there's a lot of cheaper resources. And I've found that we can actually often do it cheaper than what the customer can do themselves. But a lot of it is budget. You need to plan for this stuff. Planning for third-party tools to fill in gaps, but also in the development and design work. A lot of customers can't do the design and have it be easy. So it's not so uncommon these days for people to get help around specific projects. Now, I have mentioned consulting and so on. I think there's a lot of experience out there in the communities. I've spoken at hundreds of events, and what I've found is that the communities, people within the communities will give free advice. There's tons and tons of free advice. A lot of people who are blogging, a lot of people who speak at free SharePoint Saturdays and events across the world. I think most major cities in the U.S. now have SharePoint user groups. Even in Canada, all the major cities, Mexico City's got it. Brazil, Portugal, Australia has tons of user groups. New Zealand has like 7 user groups. They really are all over the world. I even go with Sharing the Point sometimes, a bunch of my friends, and we'll go out to new areas and organize user groups all over the world. And a lot of it is, what are these user groups about? A lot of it's not just so that you can hear the topic of the month. It's so you can meet other people and bounce ideas off of them. And you're not alone. And I think that's the real key to understand, is you are not alone. We're here to help. And I'm going to hand things over. I want you to understand you can either learn from success or learn from failure. Hopefully you can learn from other people's mistakes, but we're definitely looking towards success and where you can go.
Perfect. So thanks for that, Joel. I think definitely some great ideas there, both in background and in actual scenarios and examples of how we can build our portals to be more engaging and that way much more successful. Moving on to just a few more slides here before we get into a short demonstration and then to get to some of your questions. Following on what Joel said, at Intlock we look at that idea of building better portals on improving productivity in 3 steps. The first step that we see is to be able to monitor, and by monitor I mean understanding how's the portal being used. So oftentimes when we deploy these portals, we're not really sure to say, is the portal being used at all? Is it a specific group of users? Are there folks who are not using the portal? Is there content no one can find, and so forth? So that first pillar that we believe in is actually monitoring and answering some of these many unknowns. The second pillar that we like to talk about that Joel spent a lot of time today on was engagement. So how can we build more engaging content, but also how can we actually proactively engage users and ask them, what are your pain points? What do you need for us to build in the portal? What can we improve? And so forth. And then the third pillar is taking the first 2 pillars and turning them to actionable items which allow us to go back to enhance, improve, and optimize our portal. So those are really the 3 main pillars that we believe in. And then here you can see kind of that second pillar. We'll go into a little bit more of a demonstration to show you how we can actually engage with users and really understand from them what are their pain points and so forth. So I'll jump here into Cardiolog for a moment, into our user interface, and then go ahead and full screen the browser for you as well. All right, so here I know many of you are familiar with the reporting, with the analytics that we can provide, but of course I want to focus today on user engagement. How can we engage with users in order to really collect the feedback that we want to know what are their needs and so forth. And so if I jump into a SharePoint page, at the bottom right of my screen you can see one of these surveys within the page. And again, the idea is to really be able to engage our users. Let's go ahead and add a survey together. Let's go to the About Us page. All right, so there's no survey on this page. We'll just quickly add a survey to show you how easy it is to really engage with users and gather the feedback that we need. So One or two more examples. Within our surveys, we can ask for both open text-based answers or multiple choice questions. And again, let's go ahead and build a survey together just to emphasize how quickly and easily we can create these surveys. Let's give our survey a name. We'll define the page we want the survey to appear on. Make sure we activate this. The next part of the survey is pretty unique. Here we can actually ask or tell who we want the survey to appear for. So is this all users who arrive at that page, or do we want to ask a specific targeted question or really engage a specific group of users? For example, we can leverage things like AD groups or attributes or SharePoint profiles and actually ask a specific targeted question or display a survey to one of those groups. So again, if there's something that we really want to ask folks from our marketing team or our sales team, we can ask that individual group. Next, we'll define the appearance of this survey, where it should appear from, what it will look like. And then the next step is to actually enter the questions that we want to ask our users. So we can just enter this question, define it's going to be open text-based answers or multiple choice. We'll just keep this with yes or no. We can add additional questions. All right, and here we'll give the user room to actually express themselves and tell us what they feel we can do to improve the portal. And then the last step here, once we've actually entered the questions, is another step of engagement. So besides just showing them a thank you message, which is the first option, or showing them the results that other people submitted within the organization, here we're going to take a next step of actually engaging with users, and there are a few ways to do that. First of all, we can open up a new tab for the user based on what they replied. So for example, the user tells us that they were not able to find the content they're looking for. We can open up a new tab for them with our search or support page, again, to really engage with users and help them find what they're looking for. We can open up another survey for them to collect more feedback and so forth. So that's the main idea here. Very, very easy to use these surveys, and the idea that it's very, very powerful to help us improve the portal and build better portals based on this feedback. Let's browse back to our SharePoint page, to our About Us page. Okay, and here you can see this survey. Let's quickly answer. We'll submit the survey, and we'll take a look at what these replies look like within the tool itself. All right, so here you can see an example of how we can view the answer. So in this case, we only have one reply. Let's go to another survey where we have a few more replies so you can get a better idea. All right, so here you can see exactly what your users answered, whether if they're able to find the content you're looking for, whether if they have any suggestions on how to improve the portal, and so forth. And then we can also see these answers filtered by specific pages within our environment. So I mentioned that you can define what page the survey should appear on, or if it should appear on all pages within your site. But we might want to see the answers per each page. So I might see that on page A, I get a lot of replies where people are very happy and able to find the content on that page, versus other areas of the portal, like other pages or sites, where the answers are quite different. And that allows us as the admins or the business owners of the site to target or improve the actual areas that need improvement. So here in that sense, we're able to have a survey appear on all pages within our site, or within a few sites, across a few sites, but then again see the answers or the results for specific groups of users and also for specific content within that site. So that would be one of the pillars here that we talked about, which is engagement. And then the other pillar that I wanted to share with you briefly, some of the things that Joel had mentioned. So Joel, during his presentation, talked about how do we know what's most popular? How can we link to content that's most popular? How do we know who are our top users? We're talking about adoption. Who are users who are not using the portal as much, or which groups aren't using the portal as much? And so here we'll just build a quick dashboard just to add some of these metrics and show you how we can really create dashboards that will provide us with actionable next steps with the goal of improving our portal. Let's go ahead and add just a few metrics here. All right, so here we're going to learn what's our most popular content versus least popular content. We're going to learn who are our top users, or which groups of users are not using the portal as often. And I'll also take a short look at search, as I know Joel talked to that as well throughout his slide deck. So take a look on how we can improve or learn more about how our users are engaging with search. Let's start here for now. At the top left-hand side, we have a metric here showing us a lot of information about the individual pieces of content within our environment. So in this case, we're showing what's most popular within the environment. We can very easily change that to show us what's least popular, maybe content that has not been viewed at all. We'll just change the minimum result counts to 0. All right, then we can flip that around to see what's been less popular within our environment. We don't have anything with 0 page views here, but of course if we did have content that did not have any usage, we could show that here as well. And then on the right-hand side, 2 different metrics about users. So at the top you can see some unique users like Katie, Hannah, and Eleanor. We can easily identify who are our top users in the organization, who are our SharePoint evangelists, and turn them into hubs of knowledge within their departments. And then below we can also see usage based on different user groups. And as I scroll down here, we can see who are the groups who are not using the portal as often. So again, when we tackle adoption, we can tackle it from a perspective of not from the entire organization, but who are the few groups that are not using the portal as often. And to conclude here, we'll talk a little bit about search. And Joel is showing how we can improve our portals with the help of leveraging search. Let's take a look at the on-site search phrases. So here, this is a single metric, but we can extract a lot of insights from this metric. First of all, we have a list of the top search phrases people are searching for. So oftentimes to help us identify what's the content people find most popular, what's the content that people can't find. It's the first thing that we can identify here from this metric. Next, if you take a look at the next columns, talking about the number of times each phrase was searched for, the number of results retrieved, and the number of clicks on one of the results, we can also from here get a lot of insight. So first of all, based on the number of results retrieved, we can identify if a user is able to find what they're looking for after they search. In this case, for extension, for example, if there's only one result, there might be a problem here. The users might not be able to find the items that they're searching for. And more than that, if we compare the number of clicks on a result, the number of searches, in some cases we can see the amount of clicks are very few compared to the searches, in which case we can identify that the results that were retrieved by our search engine simply are not relevant because our users are not selecting one of the results. This is a great example on how, with a single metric, we can turn that into a lot of actionable items where we can really make changes to improve our portal, and with the end goal, as Joel was talking about throughout the slide deck, how can we make our users more productive and turn the portal into a much better solution?
I think, I was just looking on your search phrases, holidays. What's interesting is when we first started investigating holidays, we thought, oh, people are really searching for holidays a lot. But what we found was it wasn't just a matter of knowing when the holiday was. They wanted to know what the weekend looked like before, so that they could really plan their vacation around the holidays. So that was kind of an interesting user study we did, was understanding they wanted to visualize the calendar, the holiday calendar, because they wanted to see so they could plan their weekend with the holiday.
That's a great point, and I think that's one of the keys here, is that once we have these metrics and able to identify, okay, what are users looking for, we now have a way to talk to them about topics that they might be curious about. So once we know that holidays is one of those key search phrases, now it's a great way to actually gather some users and ask them, why did you search for holidays? What are you actually searching for? Did the results actually help you out? So I think that's a great example and a great point of how we can really improve the portal based on this engagement with our users. All right, I know we have a little more than 10 minutes until the end of our hour. So go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that you have. And if there are any more questions, feel free to send them in the GoToWebinar questions panel. And we'll take a look at those right now. All right, the first question is asking, hi, will this webinar be recorded? The answer is yes, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll send a link to everyone following the call. We'll upload in the next day or so. So by Friday, you should have an email with the link to the webinar. Let's take a look at the next question. All right, Mark is asking about improving the portal, and his question, Joel, is for organizations who are stuck with, who said that they were not at the place that they wanted to be. What do you feel they need to do in order to get there? What would be the main ideas there?
A lot of it is kind of understanding where the destination is, and if you're having a hard time figuring out, what that end game looks like, what the goal looks like, I think that's an opportunity to engage a consultant or to engage the community, like a good designer, for example. What I found is you may have some ideas of some features and how you might want to display things, but once you've engaged a really good designer who's really tapped in with what's happening in the industry, it's going to blow your mind when you visualize your same portal with a new look and feel that is responsive and that works on mobile devices and iPads, and that some of these examples of like one of the ones I found recently was it was a little tool that would basically pick a random person from the profile, and so it would show the picture, and it was kind of a game of who could name the most pictures, name the people in the pictures. So it was a kind of a cool way of get to know you kind of game, but also it would show a leaderboard of who knows the most people in the company. It was kind of an ongoing kind of game that would expose people on the intranet and engage people. Kind of a fun, cool idea.
Okay, nice. Next question here from Davey. Davey's asking, moving from SharePoint 2010 to 2013, what do you see some of the big advantages that we should be taking advantage of?
Yeah, so 2013, a few of the big things that are there. One of them is communities in terms of engagement. There's a whole new template. Another one is search. Search is huge. Major investments in search around new preview capabilities, these new display templates, the Office web apps that allows you read-write capabilities, the cross-browser drag and drop capabilities. That's a fun one to get the users engaged with and seeing, is that they can now drag and drop, not just in IE, but even in Chrome and Firefox, multi-file drag and drop. It's a great way to get users engaged and excited about the new version. The HTML5 video player is the new asset library, much easier. The new thumbnails around videos. The new social streams and integration with Yammer, if you decide to go that way. The list goes on and on. There's the new search web parts for exposing content, dynamic navigation. The list is huge. Let me just say that in terms of what's cool and exciting about 2013, there's a lot of things. If you gave me an area of focus, I could give you a bunch of ideas around what's new and what to get your users excited about, or even parts of the business.
Okay, so it sounds like quite a lot for David to be excited about as his team moves to 2013. Next question is more about licensing, and here James is asking about licensing of Cardilog. So I'll just quickly mention that there are a few editions of the tool. The basic edition is actually free, where you can actually deploy this user engagement tool and actually survey your users completely for free. And that's not limited with time. It's just limited in the number of surveys that you can launch. And then the commercial editions are a perpetual license, a one-time fee for ownership. And I'll go ahead and send you, James, an email with a link to our website. You can see all the pricing details and so forth. All right, let's take a look at a few more questions here. All right, Emily's asking if we're stuck on SharePoint 2007, are we lost in regards to creating engaging environments?
I think that is tough for people who may be using older versions of SharePoint and feel like, oh man, there's so much more that I could be getting. I think that what you'll find is a lot of third-party tools, they're backwards and forwards compatible. So meaning if you buy a tool, you can get whatever version that you need for the edition you've got. And I'm not saying you have to buy it either. You can obviously build tools that work and are forward compatible. So as you upgrade, you just have that design in mind. There are more engaging types of features in SharePoint 2013, but a lot of what I spoke to around being able to expose news and being able to have icons and images, a lot of that is when you're building your list, your news list, basically making sure that you've got, you're capturing and designing around the idea of engagement. How can people, while SharePoint 2007 doesn't necessarily have likes in it, you can't like something, and even between 2010 and 2013, the like functionality has changed drastically. In 2013, it's a list feature where you can simply turn on likes or ratings. It's just a feature of the list, and it'll automatically count it. What you need to do is expose it on the portal. In 2010, it's a tag, basically. It'll put the tag of I like it. So the 2013 one, I think, is the best iteration of it. 2007 doesn't have likes, but you could create a list that that kind of goes along with your list. What I've seen some people do for their news section of their intranet is actually using the blogging, like having a blog behind the scenes, and then using something like Designer to pull in the data from that list, from the blog, to pull in the title, to pull in the comments and things like that, or do like a comment counter so that you can at least show something around popularity, for example, being able to show how many comments given articles have.
Okay, so you're saying that there still are options, even for people who are kind of lagging with older versions of SharePoint. Of course, we understand that SharePoint 2013 does have a lot more functionality for sure in the social areas, but good to hear that there are things that we can do in 2007 to still build something more engaging with our users.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Let's take a look. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions here. All right, Judy's asking specifically about Cardlog's roadmap for Office 365. So I'll just quickly say, Judy, that we're already there. Cardlog's already compatible with both SharePoint 2013 on-premise or SharePoint Online and Office 365. Just the functionalities that I shared today in the demo, both the reporting, surveys, and so forth, are compatible both with on-premise, online, or a hybrid solution that you might be launching. And I'll, of course, send you more information about that after our call. It looks like that's all the questions we have. So we're finishing right about at the hour. So for now, I'll thank you all for joining. And Joel, thanks for walking us through that deck and sharing with us some ideas on how we can really improve SharePoint, make it more engaging and productive. That was really great.
Yeah, and it's great having everybody here on this webcast. Feel free to follow me on my blog. It's collabshow.com. It's my new SharePoint and enterprise social networking blog, and also on Twitter at Joel Olesen, my name. Thanks.
Perfect. And Joel, people will be able to also have the link to the recording and slide deck from your blog as well, right? They can check that out there.
That's correct. I'll be following up with some of the questions. I'll be writing up some more additional detail, as well as including a link to the recording and to the slides. I'll be posting them to my SlideShare as well.
Perfect. All right. So you'll all be able to get that from Joel's blog or via email. But again, for now, I thank you all for joining, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks a lot, everybody.